Barbies4Life by Xtrole. Note, this is just a casual recording of this story, and there may be reading errors that happen, as was the case in parts 1 through 3. Also, I do consider this story to be fan fiction. Chapter 12. The 7 of them discussed possible ways to get the imprisoned Barbies to send Beauty, Beast, Dove, and Hawk home, but they were having a hard time coming up with any ideas that seemed like winners. Suddenly, as they were talking, a wizard appeared, and Hoot said, "Whoosh, so good to see you. What brings you here?" "Hey," Whoosh said, "I was just wondering if you had any reading recommendations. I wasn't sure what book to read next, and your picks always seem to be good ones." "Very good," Hoot said. "I recently picked up a book called Running Away that's about a couple of people who hide a person who claims that he's innocent from law enforcement. Wanna try that one?" "Sounds good," Whoosh said, and then he got a confused expression on his face and said, "Why are there small Barbies here? I thought that this world only had big ones." "We got captured," Hawk said. "Would you be able to return us to our homes?" "Sure, that'll be easy," Whoosh said. "I can transport y'all home whenever you like." "I suppose we'd better head home now," Dove said. "I mean, we may as well not waste time." And Beauty, Beast, Dove, and Hawk all nodded in agreement. "Very good," Whoosh said, and he immediately cast a spell, and he and the 4 Barbies were all standing near the cafe that they'd been kidnapped from. "Thanks," said Beauty, "and can you tell Mousy, Mouse, and Hoot goodbye for us?" "Sounds good," Whoosh said, "and I'm gonna see about making sure that those Barbies who kidnapped you can't come back here, too. It'd be a shame if they were to just come back and kidnap you again once they get out of prison." And with that, Whoosh cast a spell and disappeared from sight. The 4 of them then went into the cafe, and the manager Barbie looked at Dove and Hawk in surprise and said that she'd had to hire new people to replace them. "Where have you been?" she asked. "I couldn't understand why you would just leave without saying anything." Then Hawk and Dove told her about what had happened, and she didn't believe them, and so she called the Crazy Person Patrol, and Barbies who were wearing white uniforms soon showed up and said, "You 4 are coming with us to Beauty, Beast, Dove, and Hawk." "But we're telling the truth," Beauty wailed, and Beast tried to put up a fight, but the Crazy Person Patrol Barbies quickly shot them with stun guns and then picked them up and put them into their big vehicle. "Think we'll be able to uncrazy them?" one of the Crazy Person Patrol people said to another Crazy Person Patrol person, and the other Crazy Person Patrol person said, "Who knows, but I'm sure that we'll have a blast trying to uncrazy them. Ha 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 ha." And the driver chuckled mischievously and started up the car and began driving Beauty, Beast, Dove, and Hawk towards the loony bin. Chapter 13. When Beauty woke up, she saw that she was in a cell that also contained Beast, Dove, and Hawk, and they were each on their own cot. The other others were still asleep, and so she inspected the cell a bit more. There was a bathroom that was blocked by a curtain so that whoever used it could have privacy, and there was a sink and some disposable cups near the sink so that they could drink water. She picked up one of the cups, poured some water into it, took a drink, and pondered their situation. So, they had been taken to the loony bin because nobody believed their story about being kidnapped by big Barbies. So, should they just tell everyone that the story had been a joke? But then people might want another explanation for where they had all gone to, and what explanation could they give? It seemed that they were in a bit of a pickle. Suddenly, Dove walked over to where Beauty was, and she said, "Mornin', this sure sucks, doesn't it?" "No doubt," Beauty said unhappily. "We finally get home, and everybody thinks we just imagined everything." Dove nodded grimly, and she picked up a cup, poured some water into it, and took a drink. The two of them talked for a while, and then Beast and Hawk eventually woke up too, and the four of them tried to figure out what the best way to proceed was. What if we just told everyone that we were away on our honeymoons? Beast asked, and we could just explain away the whole ditching work thing as young people being inconsiderate jackasses sometimes. "It's a thought," Hawk said, "but we won't be able to prove anything, and once people get you into these sorts of institutions, they're often not so keen on letting you out. We'll never get out if we stick to saying what actually happened, though," Dove wailed, and Beauty frowned and reluctantly agreed with her point. Then, suddenly, Whoosh appeared in the cell with them and told them that he had closed off the portal that the giant Barbies had used, which meant that the giant Barbies wouldn't be able to kidnap them again. "Thanks," Beauty said, "but we're in a loony bin now because nobody believes us. Can you take us back to that other world and get us out of here?" "I can," Whoosh agreed, "if that's what you're all sure that you want." "Oh, it's definitely what we want," Beast said quickly. "I don't want to find out that those jerkholes were going to put us through in here." And Dove and Hawk nodded to show that they agreed with Beauty and Beast. "Very good," Whoosh said, and he cast a spell, and the five of them were all back in Hoot's abode, and they saw that Mousie and Mouse were still there too. Beauty, Beast, Dove, and Hawk then explained about everything that had happened, and Hoot said, "What a bunch of jerks, I say. You four are all welcome to stay here as long as you like, and we can probably find good homes for you before long if you want to stay at your own places." "Thanks," Beauty said happily, and then Whoosh said, "Well, I really do have to get going now. Thanks for the book, Hoot. I imagine that I'll probably see all of you again at some point," and he gave them all a cheerful wave, cast a spell, and disappeared from sight. Chapter 14. "Wow," said Mousie, "it certainly has been a crazy ride for you four, hasn't it?" "No doubt," Beauty agreed. "I mean, we were just two happy couples in a cafe, and then suddenly our lives got turned upside down, and then when we finally got home, it wasn't safe for us at home anymore. Well, hopefully this world will be a good new home for you four. Hoot said, and Mouse added that you gotta learn to roll with the punches in life sometimes, I guess. For sure, Hawk agreed, though it looks like the madness is at an end for a while at least, and we can all just be the carefree and fun-loving Barbies that we want to be. Absolutely, my friend, Beast said happily, and I have high hopes that this world is going to be leaps and bounds better than the world that we came here from would have been. That's right, Dove said excitedly. I have a feeling that our lives here are gonna be a blast. Just then, the tree that they were all in got shoved down by the bear, and the bear gobbled all 7 of them up, but luckily they had enough digestive suits with them that all of them could survive the bear's stomach again. They all hurriedly put on the digestive suits, and they waited to be ejected from the bear's anus again. Once the bear pooped them out, Beauty, Beast, Dove, Hawk, Mousie, and Mouse asked Hoot where they should go now that Hoot's home had been knocked down. Don't worry, Hoot said. I knew that this tree wasn't as strong as it could be, and I already had another home constructed. I was only still in the old home for nostalgia's sake. And so, Hoot led all of them towards her newly constructed home, and they all soon arrived there, and they all quickly began getting all cleaned up from their smelly trip down the bear's anus. Once they were all cleaned up, they all began playing a board game while they ate food and drank coffee, and the board game took a really long time to complete. It took so long to complete, in fact, that they all ended up getting really tired before they had completed the game, and so they all went to sleep and solemnly vowed to continue the game in the morning. Once morning arrived, they got back to the game, but they played the entire day and still hadn't completed it again. They were determined to complete the board game, though, and so they continued playing it every day for over 2 months, and then they finally completed the game, and Mousie was the winner. Good job, Mousie, Beauty said happily. You really came back from almost losing on that one. Yeah, Beast agreed. If someone had told me a month ago that you would win this game, I would have just chuckled and said that there was no way. It just goes to prove that you can't count anyone out, Dove declared, and Hawk grinned and said, Yup, life is full of surprises, and very unlikely things happen all the time. I had faith in you all along, my love, Mouse said happily. I knew that you could pull it off. It was a game for the ages, no doubt, Hoot said, and then she asked anyone up for a rematch. Everyone cheered, and the board and pieces were all quickly arranged in their starting positions, and the rematch was on. The end. Epilogue. Okay, so now I had my story completed, and it was only 2 hours before the writing club meeting, and so I printed out the rest of the story, put it in my backpack, and headed off towards the meeting. As I was walking towards where the meeting was going to be at, I ran into my friend who's named Betsy, and she said, Hey, you headed to writing club too? Yup, I said. I spent the last week writing a fan fiction story about Barbies. Barbies? She said curiously. An interesting way to go. I don't think that guys are really usually into Barbies. For sure, I agreed, and that's why I tried to make the story appealing to guys too, by having things like huge kidnapping Barbies, farting, being pooped out of a bear's anus, and being captured and taken to a loony bin in the story. Ah, Betsy said in an interested tone of voice. Now you've got me curious about the story, haha. Thanks, I said. What's your tale about? I did it about two people who fall in love, but one of them is a spy, and she keeps her spying life secret from her spouse. I only have 2 chapters done so far. Want to hear them while we walk to the meeting? Sure, I said, and Betsy began to tell me what she had written so far of her story that was called Double Life. Chapter 1. Uncovered. Julie and Roger stumbled into the hotel room, still both drunk after the party. They staggered over to the bed, but things never quite got raunchy. They were attracted to each other, sure, but didn't want to go to any places that they might regret. That said, they did fall asleep with their arms around each other, though they'd only just met. When they woke up in the morning, still enjoying the way that the other's skin felt, Roger asked, I know that we're only here because of a party, but did your heart also melt? Julie grinned and pulled him close and answered, yes it did. And within the next couple of minutes, a pastor was in, and within the next couple of months, a pastor was inviting them to kiss. This all seems normal, right? Just 2 lovebirds who had a shaky start but found true love. Well, that was what Roger thought too, but unknown to him. That was what Roger thought too, but unknown to him, Julie was a spy from another country who had found a blissful escape in his embrace. The problem was that her employers were not the sort to just let their little dove fly away. She desperately wanted to just quit the spying game and just be an average person living an average life, but her higher-ups informed her that if she didn't do the jobs that they demanded, both her and her true love would die. So she lived a double life, seeming like a normal beloved of Roger's, while simultaneously uncovering secrets of their country and sending them back to her place of birth. She hoped and prayed, oh so dearly, that her secret would never be uncovered. Chapter 2. Property. Roger worked on fixing up a buggy that reminded him of the love bug from those cheesy old Disney movies. He was hoping that it would be fixed up by the time that Julie got back to town, so that they could take it for a romantic spin around the city. She worked as a flight attendant and should be back home within a couple of days, as long as no flights were canceled or delayed. Of course, it was the holiday season, and 'twas always possible that the weather could misbehave. Ah well, even if it did, that would just ensure that he had enough time to finish working on their little bug before she returned. He happily hummed one of his favorite songs, which, of course, was a very special one that reminded him of her. Julie finished extracting the information that she'd been tasked with retrieving and securely sent it off to her team. This operation had gone so successfully that she knew that she could easily be able to get home to Roger on schedule. Thankfully, she hadn't realized before marrying him exactly how patriotic he was, and hoped to God that he'd never discover that she was regrettably operating as a foreign spy. So far, nothing had gone wrong at all. Her flight attendant cover had been working perfectly, and she was doing a very good job of slipping in and out of the different roles that she played in her life. Of course, her love for Roger wasn't a role at all. It was only that damnable spying that was merely a role now, and what they what they had meant everything and then some to her. Perhaps that was one reason why he'd never grown suspicious or started getting odd vibes when he was around her. She dearly loved him and would do anything to ditch her duplicitous job that had her in its clutches so deeply. Her boss had been quite unhappy that she'd even fallen in love with and married someone who had no espionage value, but hadn't recalled her because she'd continued completing missions with exceptional competence and efficiency. It troubled her that there was no foreseeable end in sight for her double life, for she truly was, legally speaking, government property. She was sworn for life to both worlds that she lived in, but only Roger actually had her sincere heart's loyalty. A couple of days later, she got home to find that he'd completed that adorable love bug that he'd been toiling away at for the last couple of months. She joyfully sped off with him into town in it, and after they'd showered each other with kisses and hugs, completely gone from her mind was the part of her that she wished she could truly destroy completely. She wasn't going to let anything even come close to coming close to getting in the way of her and Roger's romantic and glorious evening. "That's great," I said to Betsy. "I think that you've got a cool story there, and it makes me wonder if their relationship will be able to survive her secret spying." "Thanks," Betsy said happily. "I want to hear yours too, but we're almost to the meeting, and so I'll have to hear it either during the meeting or after the meeting." "Sounds good," I said happily, and the two of us continued walking towards where the meeting was so that we could meet up with the other writers and find out what kinds of tales everyone else had come up with.